You're watching 12 on Health. Now, if you ever dealt with a family member's medical issues, you know it can be a full-time job, and so many people are part of the sandwich generation, caring for kids and elderly parents at the same time. A Connecticut nurse has some advice for how to handle the situation. Our guest now, registered nurse Sharon Gauthier, has launched a business called Patient Advocate for You. She helps patients and relatives of patients navigate the healthcare system. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you.
I imagine some of your clients are so relieved when you show up.
Yes, I have got families that are more frustrated than the clients themselves, because most of the time the 85-year-old is not the one that calls me to say that they're not doing well.
Right.
It's a family member, and a lot of
they intentionally, I imagine, are not sharing all of their stress with that person. They don't want that person to feel like a burden.
Correct.
But they're losing it.
Yeah, and it usually is wrapped around a crisis, hospitalization, a fall. They enter the house and it's a mess. The mom or dad comes from the doctor's office and there's like scattered information about exactly what's going on. So I kind of come in and listen to their story. And when I have their story, I come up with a plan to help the families manage it better and relieve them of that stress. So I go to doctor's appointments with them. I actually make doctors talk to each other, which is always a challenge. And when there is a critical event that happens, then I'm the emergency person that's called in and become that in between the healthcare and the family, the explanation of what's going on. And
Are
choices.
you put on like a retainer? I mean, you become somebody who's keeping track?
Correct. Well, when people normally contact me, they will give me a retainer that normally gets them 6 hours of time, and then after that I'm paid an hourly rate. When we're done with whatever crisis or intervention that is going on, it could be a hospitalization, it could be I've got a report from a daughter-in-law down in North Carolina who kept calling her mother-in-law and she wasn't, the phone wasn't activated.
Okay.
So when I walked in, her phone had been shut off because she didn't
boy.
pay her bill.
Right. Things can fall through the cracks real easily.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. Do you go about getting their records from each of their doctors?
Yes, I do. I get a HIPAA release form from the family or the client themselves, and then I contact the physicians and let them know that I'm involved, that I'm not directing care, but I'm part of the process, because what I bring to them is information that they wouldn't normally get.
Do you think it helps that you're a nurse when you make those calls?
Oh, absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
speak their language.
I speak their language. I had a lady who needed to have an endoscopy done, and they kept calling her and saying, well, we're going to schedule this at 6 o'clock in the morning. Well, there was no way she was going to get there at 6. So when I got involved and it was scheduled and they called me, I said, she can't do 6. So let's do 9. And they immediately said, well, we can't do 9. So I said, well, you need to have the nurse call me, which she did. We arranged for her to have it done at 10 and have liquids through the night. So she got it done.
Okay, and you knew what she would need afterwards.
Correct.
And
Correct.
I think that part of the issue is the lack of knowledge of the healthcare system, because my mom, she's smart about everything, but when she was in the hospital, suddenly she was just kind of there at their disposal, and I had to kind of come in and be her patient advocate. It seems like everyone sort of needs one when they're vulnerable in a hospital.
Well, correct. First of all, they're not feeling well. They're extremely intimidated. And more than anything, it's not your physician that's in there monitoring and arranging your care. It's a hospitalist. And although the theory in paper looks really good, the reality is that you walk into the hospital with an issue and it's only that issue they look at.
Right.
Even though there may be multiple other issues that led up to that that nobody talks to you about.
They're not searching your history.
Correct.
All right, let's show some pictures. These are just faces on situations. Give us some examples of the scenarios.
Well, this lady right here actually is in a memory care unit, and her son lives in Germany, and it's her attorney that got me involved, because the family that was here couldn't monitor her anymore.
So she has either Alzheimer's or dementia?
She has Alzheimer's, correct. So I go to her physician's appointments with her. When there were any issues at the assisted living that she's in, they would call me and we would kind of plug through it, because there really is no nursing at the assisted living place, very minimal.
Okay. Here's another client.
This lady actually came from Pennsylvania, and her daughter had her flown here because she was so ill and not being managed well over there. So when she came here and went to Hartford Hospital, the daughter got me involved because she was so overwhelmed. And she was the only child, and this particular woman, Joanne, who was so sick, now is faced with moving out of state, having to get all new doctors, go to rehab, find a place to live, and the daughter couldn't manage all that. So I walked in and was able to get that done.
Here's a happy outcome, and I know they sent you a very lovely thank you note.
Yes, this actually is the lady I was talking about whose phone was disconnected, and in addition to that, she was taking the wrong medications. So I initially started involved with her, got her medications straightened out, her phone back in service, and then it eventually went into many people that I'm partnered with, one being a non-medical home care agency, which that was the aid. The other is Phil, who pays her bills for her. So now she's never faced with having to have her phone disconnected.
And she's able to stay at her home.
She wanted to stay at home. She made that very clear. And people who have memory issues sometimes do absolutely fine at home if you have a routine for them.
And you don't need to have someone there every minute necessarily.
Correct. There's someone that goes in there every day in the morning for 2.5 hours. When the power went out because of the storm, there's 4 of us that are involved with her, so there's someone there almost every day.
So it's telecare in some cases. Thank you so much. Well done. Keep us informed of the newest stuff, because this is affecting so many people right now. Thank you so much. When we come back, where things stand with Lyme disease. Apparently, ticks are still out, and some of them are so tiny they look like specks of dirt. Lyme Insight in less than 2 minutes, right here on 12 on Health.